Like many people right now, I am in lockdown in the UK, working from home. But as an astrophysicist, well, the universe doesn't stop, and neither does science. However, it has been affected somewhat by the pandemic, so hopefully this video will shed some light on that. So for those of you who saw my video from 6 months ago on the day in the life of an astrophysicist in my normal office in the University of Oxford, my morning start here will be very familiar and also seem rather ordinary. Because astrophysics is a lot of data analysis, it's coding and running simulations to answer questions about the universe. So all I really need is my laptop and I can work from anywhere. So this is my home office, but you know, to change it up a bit, I've been working from the dining room and from the lounge and from outside as well.
Can't bloody see.
But usually I'm in here and I start with my bullet journal. I write down all the tasks I want to get done today. I check emails, those from colleagues about science, from subscribers with questions, and from the university updating on the current situation with the pandemic. They've declared a 12-month hiring freeze for academic jobs, which has never been heard of before. It's really worrying for someone like me. I'm halfway through a 3-year grant-funded research fellowship, and ideally I'll start applying for a permanent academic job in the next year or so, and there just might not be any available. I can't think about that now though. I've also got to go through all the new journal articles that have been released today and choose one for our group's journal club later at 10. These articles are the papers we write to summarise the research we've done to announce it to the scientific world. Every time a science story makes it to the press, it's because an article like this has been released. I like the look of this one on the potential of galaxy-sized outflows caused by stars and supernova to eject gas and stop further star formation in galaxies. It's by one of my colleagues, Guido Roberts Pisani, who has just finished up his PhD at UCL and moved to UCLA. Before that though, I've got some science to do. Tomorrow is the deadline for applications to use the MUSE instrument on the Very Large Telescope, the VLT, in Chile. MUSE is such a cool instrument because it's what we call an IFU, an integral field unit. It's a big bundle of fiber optic cables that take a spectrum at each point in the galaxy, so you have a mosaic or a jigsaw of data across it, which you can also think of as an image of the galaxy at every colour or wavelength. Now, astronomy, i.e. observing the sky, unlike astrophysics, i.e. doing the analysis and the science, has been massively affected. Currently, all the major astronomy observatories are shut down because of the pandemic, including Mauna Kea in Hawaii, USA, Las Cumbres in La Palma, and Paranal in Chile, where the VLT is. So anyone who had MUSE time in March, April 2020 have had that time scrapped. So they're all going to be applying again for time this year for 2021, just like me, making it extra competitive. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, surely these observatories can be operated remotely, but they're billions of dollars worth of equipment and each one needs specialist technicians and engineers to service them during the day and be on hand in case anything goes wrong during observing at night. So it's just not safe to keep those sites operating right now, and so they've all been put into a safe shutdown mode. I'm applying for time on the VLT in March 2021 though, so I'm working with the assumption that things will be back up and running by then, fingers crossed. To put this proposal together, I've first of all had to decide what galaxies I want to observe, work out how long I will need to observe each one of them with this instrument to get good quality data, and then write a scientific justification of why it's important to observe these specific galaxies. I also need to justify why this telescope specifically is needed to do this, and justify the amount of time I'm asking for, i.e. the number of nights I'll need to do it. What we're proposing to observe is 10 of a very rare kind of galaxies, which do not have any bulge in the middle. So why is that rare? Well, when galaxies form, they make these perfect spiral disc shapes, but over time they merge together and that wrecks that nice shape and causes stuff to sink to the middle and form these bulges. So instead of stars on nice ordered orbits in these discs, it's a bit more like a beehive in the middle. Of course, when you sink things to the center in a merger like that, the supermassive black hole in the middle of the galaxy also grows. So we call this co-evolution, and for a long time, people thought that that's the only ways that supermassive black holes grow, through mergers. But we've got a sample of galaxies with no bulges, with just as massive supermassive black holes. So the question is, how are they growing? Not only that, but these 10 galaxies also have supermassive black holes that are burping currently as well. That means that the galaxy is somehow getting more than enough material to the center than the black hole can actually use to grow, and so it actually ends up throwing the rest out in an outflow, i.e. a burp, as I like to call it. Now, this burp doesn't come from the black hole itself, it comes from relieving the pressure in the material spiraling around the black hole before it's crossed the event horizon. Now, we want to try and resolve these burps so we can work out how much material is in them, to work out how much material the galaxy is providing to the black hole in the middle. Once we have that, we should be able to narrow down the mechanism responsible, i.e. how the galaxy is growing its black hole without merging with another galaxy. Now it's time for our journal club. So I have my paper that I grabbed before, but Chris has also brought one along with our PhD student Tobias. I went first with my paper on these galactic scale outflows, so these are burps not caused by black holes, but smaller ones caused by supernova. And what we do is we just go over the figures and the conclusions together, and we think about how that coincides with the big picture of how galaxies evolve, and whether we should do any follow-up work with our own data as well, to check whether we find the same or follow up on a question they might have posed in the paper. Tobias went next, and he brought a paper on giant molecular clouds in barred galaxies. So these are huge clouds which are stellar nurseries from which stars can form, and this paper is saying that a lot of them are actually found on the ends of bars, which are these big structures we tend to see in spiral and disk galaxies. And then Chris brought a paper on early type galaxies, which are the end products of these mergers of two galaxies. Ones where you end up with no disk, but all bulge, so that all the stars are on these chaotic beehive-like orbits around the center. And this paper showed that actually you can't just assume that all early type galaxies formed in the same way like that. It looks like they all have different histories to get to that point. After that, we catch each other up on our individual work and where we're up to. I sent the final draft of my Muse proposal to them before this, and we're just checking we're happy with everything. But of course, there's always a few final tweaks to make to any draft, so after the call finished, I got down to doing that. Writing a proposal is a pretty big task, and it's one I feel like I've been doing for a while now, because last month was also the deadline for doing the same thing but with the Hubble Space Telescope. So I had to do the science and technical justifications and the calculating the time needed, all over again, because this is a completely different instrument and it's in space as well. I mean, the idea of Hubble in space looking at my galaxies that I want to look at is incredible, and I geek out about it every time I think about it. But I can't get my hopes up because it's very competitive. Obviously, I won't be able to go to the Hubble Space Telescope because it's in space, but if I get time on Muse, I would get to go to the observatory in Chile, which I would love to do because I haven't had a chance yet. I've been to Mauna Kea and I've been to La Palma, but not yet Paranal. I've been sat down for a while now, so it's probably time for some exercise. I've been carving out some time before lunch to do some high-intensity interval training exercise, a few days a week, just to help clear my mind a bit and keep me active. I used to commute into work on the train, and now I no longer walk to and from train stations. I've lost about an hour's worth of movement in my day, so it's so important to keep active. Usually I want breakfast as soon as I wake up, and I've no motivation by the end of the day to do anything, so at least working from home gives me the flexibility to schedule in some exercise when I want to do it. Oh, burpees can just go away. But I really hope I don't ache tomorrow after that.
Tomorrow.
After a quick shower, and honestly, would not have dried my hair normally if this wasn't for YouTube, but it's lunchtime. Today's lunch is ramen, and I've been finding thinking up different lunches to make every day so difficult. Just missing popping out to the nearby delis or cafes that surround the physics department in Oxford. I found I've really been missing the ramen from this cool tiny little food truck that sits up near the maths department in Oxford, so I picked up this ramen pack with broth and spices included to try and make something a little bit healthier than a pot noodle anyway. My partner Sam is also working from home during the pandemic, so we usually eat lunch together, which is really nice to have that time. But if he has a work call over lunch, instead I'll join the PhD students in the astrophysics department who set up Zoom lunches, which is, well, really good fun, for everyone in the department to catch up socially with colleagues and just see how everyone's doing. Back to work though at 1 because I have a call with a colleague in Lancaster. This is Brooke Simmons, who I'm working with on this sample of bulgeless galaxies. We have a call every week to catch up on what science we've been up to and also what we've been up to in lockdown, just keeping each other cheerful. But today's priority is once again this Muse proposal because the deadline is tomorrow. Did I say that already? Could you tell it's on my mind? We're just going over it again, checking we're happy with everything in the justifications and how much time we're asking for, and I'll make more tweaks later before I submit. Thankfully, we didn't find anything major that we wanted to change. Brooke also caught me up with what her PhD students were up to as well and how she's finding remote lecturing for undergraduate students. It's definitely not easy, and I'm glad that I'm not at a career stage right now that I have to worry about doing that too. At this point, my back is absolutely killing me from sitting on this chair. It's an okay chair, but it's not ergonomic in the slightest. It's like an IKEA fold-out thing, so stretching has become a daily ritual for me. Can't hang around for long though, because next up I've got a call with my master's student Thomas, who has been doing a research project with me all year on how often mergers happen in groups of galaxies of different sizes and masses. He's currently in the stage of writing up his research project and submitting his final thesis. Here's my master's thesis that I wrote back in 2012 as an example. This project usually counts for half of a student's final year mark, but since all exams have been cancelled by the university and by all schools across the UK here, this will now be his full mark for the whole year, which is a scary prospect for a student, added with the fact that he's probably not going to get back to Oxford for his final term from May to June, to have exams and a big send-off with all of his mates. It's a pretty heartbreaking time for a lot of students out there. So I'm trying to be as supportive as I can. Today we're going through, the last little bits of things because his report is due in a few weeks. He's done all the research now, it's just focusing on the interpretation, what things go into the report, things like that. So I've got 45 minutes before I have another call, so I'm doing those last few little tweaks of the Muse proposal that I talked with Brooke about before. Then I'm going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb to try and pick up all the typos and grammar issues that you never want to find. One of my collaborators, Bill, pointed out that I'd said at one point that none of these galaxies have been observed in precious IFU surveys. I meant previous, but obviously the Spiegel in me was sneaking out there. Precious! I'm at the point where I am happy with it now, but I've just run out of time to submit it because it's time for a big team telecon. So most of my PhD research was done on the shapes of galaxies and how different shapes of galaxies stop forming stars as they run out of fuel. To do this, I used the classifications from the Galaxy Zoo project, an online citizen science project that gets the public, i.e. you, watching this right now, to classify the shapes of galaxies in hundreds of thousands of astronomy survey images. There's just so many of them that there's not enough astrophysicists in the world to classify them, or a large enough training set for a computer to do this with machine learning to a high enough degree of accuracy. This project was the first of its kind to be set up back in 2007 when I was even still at school, and now there's hundreds of projects just like it under the banner of the Zooniverse, from classifying penguins in Antarctica to understand how overfishing is affecting colony numbers over there, to classifying satellite images taken before and after natural disasters to help relief teams on the ground reach those areas that need it the most. All those classifications get used by the individual science teams to do research. And so this call is the Galaxy Zoo science team catching up on the science people have been up to and the state of the project. Since lockdown, we've seen classifications increase to triple their normal level, which I guess is a silver lining to everything that's happening right now. It means that more science will get done. But now, the time is finally here to submit my Muse proposal after all the checks, knowing everyone is happy with it. I love this moment when a piece of work moves off your desk and you know that you can crack on with something else tomorrow. And of course, we need the obligatory happy dance to celebrate that victory of getting that off my desk and submitting it. You've got to take your victories where you can. Reached a whole new level of special there, didn't we, Becky? Well done. Honestly, I much prefer the data analysis and coding side of my job than the writing side. So as important as it is to put together these proposals so that I can get data to work with, I'm looking forward to going back to some data analysis in the rest of this week. Ooh, like this, a beautiful spectrum of a galaxy. At least, it looks beautiful to me. To celebrate, I think it's definitely time for the daily lockdown walk to stretch legs outside in the sunshine. I think this really helps with the mental strain of everything that's happening at the minute. We've been really lucky in the UK lately to have some unseasonably warm weather. It's probably made lockdown a lot tougher on people because, you know, as soon as the weather is nice here, people are just programmed to flock outside and make the most of it because we don't see it that much. But I guess this is much nicer than walking in the rain. Back home though, and I've obviously got to make sure those hands are washed properly.
Truth hurts, needed something more exciting. Bum bum be dum be dum bum be.
Lizzo is clearly my song of choice to make sure I wash them for 30 seconds. At this time, I usually do a little bit of editing for my YouTube channel. I gotta fit it in at some point during the day. So here's a rare sighting of editing Becky. She's never very happy when she's editing, as you can tell. But lucky me, Sam has been making tea whilst I've been editing, so even though it's not a Tuesday, we're having tacos. I guess we're making Taco Wednesdays a thing now, just try and stop us. Now, as much as astrophysics is my dream job, I can't do it all the live long day. My brain needs a break. So we've been doing a lot of DIY in the evenings and at weekends. We painted our lounge blue, we cut and stained and hung some shelves, and I even cleaned up an old writing box of my granddad's. DIY is not happening tonight though, because we have got noughts and crosses to watch on the iPlayer, so I am taking a break and science will just have to wait for it all to happen again tomorrow.
So he talks about the moment he found out he wanted to be
Nope, can't do this one-handed.
Manager next summer. Details will be released later today, but it means now take
I don't know.
which have been
Ugh. My back is killing me. Blah.